5 to 6 years, as far as technology is concerned, or some sort of a pandemic is concerned, the way we have been actually challenged to the very core of ours. This topic is now a must that everybody should actually get a bit concerned about and look into it, because it's more like a very convenient option to resolve the issues that probably we don't even realize that how to put it forth. Again, as usual, I'll take the honor to welcome our panelist, esteemed panelist, our creative head, Ms. Varda Yusuf. So, welcome again, ma'am. And thank you
Thank you
very
so
much for
much.
sparing time today. Thanks a lot. So, our topic today, leading fearlessly in a VUCA world. So we have, like, we can break it into three different parts, that okay, what exactly leading is, and what exactly leading fearlessly is, and what exactly leading fearlessly in the VUCA world is all about. So these could be our three major concentrations of focus for the day today. And before I go into any further detail, I reckon that just to get a bit of a background, that what exactly VUCA is and why it is so crucial about, so that we can then go to our uh, specialist again to walk us through how and why exactly this is so important, and why we have actually brought this topic ahead. So, starting it all about, if you think about the businesses, it's all about taking risks and managing uncertainties and turbulence. Uh, I would refer this quote to Gautam Adani, one of the premier most Indian businessmen, and dramatically the business world and the way people do the business and how the organizations actually operate and how they are required to operate. What are the expectations given the new model of competitions that has dramatically changed and evolved. So with rapid advances in technology, and there are a lot of environmental factors that are playing their part and role, and again internet, how could we forget that? The eureka moment for the whole species, again the third one. So in all this situation, very novel sort of challenges are taking place, things that we never actually thought about. I'm not just saying that never happened before, I'm just saying that we never had the idea could ever happen. So this is how things are changing, this is how our scenarios are developing, as far as our professional engagements are concerned, or professional preferences are concerned. Entrepreneurial saga came in, and everybody wants to go and start their own setup, and things like that. So there are so many things that are offsetting the plans of the companies if they stick to the old model, if they stick to this old mentality that okay, everything is fine and they're complacent enough. So to manage all these challenges, that I've just one of the few of those many that we are about to discuss the next half an hour or so. But just to give this idea that okay, what is the response, what is the major countermeasure, the counter strategy to actually offset all these effects and impacts of these unforeseen circumstances and unforeseen developments that have taken place, especially in the past 4 or 5 years. So we come to one very important solution that is called VUCA. Actually, I will just give a bit of a background on it. Was first introduced in United States Army War College way back in 1987, and the acronym will be definitely going into detail, but this acronym that actually is like volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So this sums it up for us, that what kind of a world we are in, where situations can get volatile, can get uncertain. There are complex, new sort of environments and developments taking place very rapidly, and we are usually ambiguous about it, what to do, what not to do about it. So this is what basically this VUCA is all about. It gives us an impression that before we respond to something that is unforeseen, it is very important that we should be aware of it, what exactly it is. Like, if we look at the alien movies, I'm much into it, so I can refer to that. That the first thing that if you are up against an alien species is to understand that they're different than us and they're unpredictable. We have no experience, exposure with them. So the first thing that they do is to understand their moves and then decide on countermeasures. So VUCA probably is that lens that allows us to realize that there is something unforeseen, number one, and number two, probably we need to handle it in a different, special kind of a way. So for that to expand on it, let us request a member to elaborate us and lighten us as usual. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Naransab. It's always a pleasure. I think meeting our audience here and, of course, getting appraised for whatever we do. So, just to build a little bit of context to what we're doing today, it's one of the other efforts that we do to sort of apprise the community and acclimatize them according to the prevalent situations. So there's a lot that's happening in the world right now, especially corporate. Every organization,
Yeah.
I think these particular elements are applicable, but the idea is to be ready for them. I think pandemic taught us the
Yeah.
right way as well. Anything could be just volatile, and situation could
Exactly.
be uncertain. There's so much happening all around. So are we really ready is a question. So today's presentation sort of is revolving around um, sort of creating and inciting a discussion about something to change the mindset of our people. So organizations might just be doing their risk analysis on the paper for their financials, but are they really ready for corporate? I mean, forever situations they might face that could just be relevant to their HR needs. They could just be
Sure.
ready about their operations, their supply chain. I mean,
Sure.
sky is not even the limit anymore, given that
Exactly.
we have steps on the moon and further. So, looking forward to this, I think I'd like to build upon our presentation, of course, and I'd appreciate if Sarnan could play
Sure.
that. Meanwhile, of course,
Sure.
building upon what VUCA really stands for. It's a beautiful presentation. Thank you, Sir Nan, for this. So,
No, it's
if we look
collective
into
effort.
it and delve into the process altogether, so we realize that your V stands for the volatility, U is your
Yeah.
uncertainty, complexity, and then ambiguity, where you rightly started off by yourself. So, interestingly, volatility is something that, if you look at it from the biological or let's just say the scientific definition, it will talk about something that's going to evaporate. So, basically, a change which is not entirely dependent on the situations. I mean, it just could be rapid, it's unpredictable, it's the changes in the market conditions, it could be technological, it could be just the external factors altogether. However, uncertainty is something that plays its part as well, and it talks about lack of predictability and clarity, making it challenging to anticipate outcomes or plan effectively. So, where is that factor being evaluated? We could also talk about the complexity part, where it talks about
Sure.
or it concerns the interconnectedness and the intricate systems that we have, requiring leaders to navigate multifaceted challenges and understand the interdependencies. Moving on, we are talking about the ambiguity part, where there are multiple interpretations to a situation. It could be blurred boundaries, it could be lack of clear cause and effect relationship, necessitating our
Sure.
adaptability and, of course, agile thinking. So there's so much happening in the world. Situations are different, like we said. So, like the very rightly put up question as well. Are we all ready according to the world? Situations are volatile, situations are uncertain, complex, and of course ambiguous. Are we leading our thought process in the right direction to make it so I think, Sanan, we're talking about a strategy today, how to actually handle
Yep.
issues, situations which could have these particular elements. So moving on, if we could build upon the concept as to how to handle it
Sure. Yeah.
through the same presentation that we have.
Yes, sure. Just proceeding further. So we have it. Yeah. These are
Absolutely.
the
So we
challenges.
talked about how situation. So, Sir Anand, here's a question to you. How often do you find that technological advancements have brought about a change in an organization, let's say you are working in right now? Do you think it has made any changes and suddenly we are not ready for it?
Well, I personally believe that there is always this intention, number one, and there is
Hmm.
always this homework going on in the background, which is, I personally believe this is a very good thing. But manifesting that homework,
Hmm.
bringing it forth, and just addressing the requirements too quickly, that
Hmm.
is probably where every organization needs to work on. So there is this thought process, there is this awareness that there is something missing, but what is missing and how exactly it can be actually brought forward, I reckon that needs a bit of an attention.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think we all sort of come across such situations. I mean, recently Chat GPT took over, and that was one of the technological
Exactly.
advancements we've had. Every industry, I mean, we're not even understanding because sometimes. So recently, I heard this concept being taught in classrooms, and we were talking about SWOT analysis as well. So
Yeah.
SWOT essentially has been changed to SWOC now. Your threats are
Yes.
no more threats. They've been renamed as challenges. It's SWOC now. challenges क्यों कहा है हमने उसको, because right now is a time when you convert your challenges into opportunities, your threats into opportunities. You sort of look into areas where you can turn them around and see where is the area you can turn them into opportunities. So
Yeah,
where ChatGPT has posed a lot of threat to many people, people are thinking life on earth might just stop and AI just might take over. Nobody's realizing, maybe, or most of them are oblivious of the fact how um, technological advancements are going to help. I mean, I spoke to my team the other day and I told them how they've always wanted an assistant, and now here it is. And they could probably purchase the upgraded version or
sure.
maybe work on the free proposition. So that's something that you need to really realize how you're going to really gauge, and then of course apply the technological advancements per se. So how
Definitely.
are we addressing the issues or the changes that are coming in the technology as well? So people who are not adopting, of course, are going to be left behind. So there was once a concept,
Definitely.
if I talk about that, teachers will not replace, or no, let me just rephrase that. So technology will
Sure.
not replace teachers, but it will definitely replace the teachers who are not utilizing technology. you know so that's
Yeah.
one part that one has to understand. So again, relevant to so many other departments. अब आ जाते हैं uncertainty in market volatility की तरफ. So when we talk about the uncertainty, are we really ready? That's again a question. Are we really questioning our thought process? Are we really seeing where the uncertain world is taking us? Is my team ready for that matter? Am I, as a leader, really directing them to the right course of action? Are we ready for our contingency
Sure.
plans? So all that has
Yeah.
to be in place. I mean, I always say this: the seat that I probably have right now can always be replaced. The seat stays, the person changes. Are we ready for our
Exactly
succession?
right.
Have we
Sure.
equipped the person who's going to be taking over enough that they can? So uncertainty, if we come to it, there's so much happening in the market with inflation and recession in place. Organizations are working hard to make ends meet. It's a huge challenge. How are we catering to that? That's another aspect.
Right. Right.
Moving on to the part where things are complex now. There's immense globalization, there's cultural diversity, there are genders involved in the company where, there's certain environment and culture of the place. Are we really setting the standards straight? Are we really
Sure.
following the guidelines we're supposed to? I mean, that's how all these rules and regulations and HR processes came into place. There's harassment, there is so much that's happening in the world. Are we really ready? Because nobody wants something bad to happen, but you're always going to be taking care and being preparing for the worst scenarios. So a very famous quote goes by, hope for the best but be prepared for the worst. So that
Yeah.
preparation is all we're talking about. It just could take another turn, right? That's the uncertainty
Definitely
part.
right. Perfectly.
Coming to the
But if I may just just picking up
please.
one of the things that you just elaborated, so a bit more that I'd like to have. If we talk about talent management and retention, in fact, and if
Hmm.
I connect it with the behavioral aspect of a workplace, the
Absolutely.
challenges the employees right now, what they have,
Hmm.
or the managers who are managing those employees who are having those kind of again, we talked about it, that everything is novel now.
Hmm.
When it comes to novelty, it's not just basically what the organization is delivering, it's basically what is happening in the organization as well. So we have a lot of psychological problems coming and surfacing very recently, especially after the COVID. And now we realize that how it actually affected us, because in the longer term, the impact, the psychological impact, which is not very positive, in fact. And on top of that, these new dynamics of of the competition as well, that everybody wants a piece of cake, and everybody wants it very quickly, in a blink of an eye, and there is a lot of pressure on the employees as well. So do you think that when we talk about fearless leadership, how exactly can a fearless leader turn, like you said, this kind of a predicament into an opportunity, and how VUCA can actually be helpful to them?
Right. So, if I'm getting the question correct, if I may just build upon it, there's been a saying. There are two of them, which is why I wrote them down. Interestingly, when there was scarcity of food in Spain, I think, no, in the Versailles area. So the queen was told that the people are, retaliating, and there's a ruckus outside. And she says, "What is their problem?" And the queen goes on saying, the people tell her that there's actually shortage of food. There's no bread for the people. And she goes on saying, but she's really fond of sweets, so she always has these baked items and cakes a lot. a lot of
Sure.
confectionery in her place to eat. She says, well, if they don't have bread, feed them the cake. Do you realize
Exactly.
जहाँ पे रोटी खाने को नहीं है वहाँ केक कहाँ बनता होगा? So when you're unaware of what's happening with your people, such statements will come. So number one, I think the first thing we need to know is actually knowing your people one on one. I think knowing how what their weaknesses are and strengths are is where we can actually manage the talent and of course retain them eventually. There are
Rightly
people
so.
who would appreciate having a job rotation as a concept if you know about it. So
Sure.
hota kya hai isme
Sure.
कि if the person is working on a certain job and he's really not really applicable there, or let's say the strengths are not really being utilized, or the person is underperforming in that particular area, you sort of transfer them to another role. They could demand it, or you could always look for the potential in that person and actually give them another role, maybe because they might just fit in
Definitely.
another box, simple as that you know And उसके अलावा दूसरी बात कि when everything goes goes south, that is, captain goes down with the ship. So when you take ownership of your people, it's when you understand that I have got to take their back, because eventually I have this belief, if they go down, I go down with them. So you could take it
Exactly.
egoistically, maybe, or maybe take it responsibly, but it sort of becomes your predicament to take care of them so that eventually you're taken care of and be a support system altogether. तो अगर आपको अपनी
Rightly
egoistic
so.
कह लें या अपने selfish reasons की वजह से भी अगर आप फिक्र करने लग जाएंगे, eventually आप अपना ही भला कर रहे होंगे, because there the intention becomes not just for one person, it's the entire team that you want to first manage and support. So my two
Rightly so.
cents on that. Yeah.
Perfect, ma'am. Just wrapping it up, and then if you allow us, we'll move to the next slide.
Please. Yes,
That
yes,
when
please.
it comes to challenges in today's VUCA world, we are talking
Ji.
about a world that is
Hmm.
volatile, that is uncertain, that is complex, and that is full of ambiguity. You see.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if we have also just focused on the behavioral aspect as well. But when we look at the rapid technological advancements, and we see that the companies actually are still stuck in that 1990s kind of a mindset,
Hmm.
that you have to respond within hours now. And we are
Hmm.
talking about a strategy. We're not talking about any minor tweaks, or we are just talking about breakthrough changes in the organizations. You've got to be very quickly reacting to it. And for that matter, we need to actually realize that anything can come and hit us from any direction.
True. Very true.
Actually, this is basically this mindset, this realization that I know that I don't know what's coming at me, but I know that something is coming at me, and something can come and hit me anytime. That could be uncertain market volatility, that could be rapid technological advancement that I probably might not be aware of. My competitor takes the advantage, and takes the first mover advantage for that matter. And the globalization and cultural diversity, of course, is a part of it, because we are not going ahead. So maybe wrapping your whole idea up in a few words before we request you to proceed with the next idea, is that probably, again, we may not know what's coming at us, but we need to know that something is coming at us, and that is
Hmm.
for sure. So
Hmm.
this just reduces the uncertainty, and this also doesn't let us panic as well. The volatility is always because we have admitted to the fact that, okay, situation is volatile enough that anything can actually hit me from any side. All
True.
right. And then again, there are rapid changes coming as well. So just moving a bit ahead with our slides, ma'am,
Ji, please.
allowing requesting you to just walk us through these core principles of fearless leadership, and how
All
it
right.
actually associates with VUCA.
Absolutely. I think this is what the whole idea was about initially when we were planning this little podcast, to sort of apprise the people how they're really missing onto. Like you very rightly put across, those points and said how it's very, very crucial for us to be having that approach to begin with and have that open mind. Ki, Haji, something might just go wrong, let's just be ready. And we talked about contingency planning as well. So people might just think of it that maybe we're trying to let people know that be pessimistic and assume there's going to be something wrong. No, we're trying to sort of instigate you to understand one thing, and that is to be far-sighted, to understand that there are endless possibilities, because the world is changing at a pace that, oh my god. I mean, we were in grade 9 and 10th, I believe, and I remember AIM sets were introduced, and today we have a sim, and now we have an eSIM as well. So the world is
Yeah.
changing at an at an exponential rate right now, and It's amazing how we're getting to know these things and these changes in the world. आपकी sound systems, आपकी screen resolutions कहाँ से कहाँ चली गई हैं. So why not expect that there could be something that might just go wrong? So long story
Rightly so.
short, it's all about being prudent and how do you handle it as a fearless leader. So beginning with the first point that was very rightly put here, and talks about being courageous in decision making. So this is about having that gut where you sort of enable yourself to be leading this team and being able to make bold choices and taking the calculated risks in the face of uncertainty. So there are possibilities, you sort of realize them, and then your decision making becomes that brave enough, like I said, have that muscle to make the risky decisions you have to, but of course then again being prudent and risk evaluation ke saath saath. Moving on from there, we talk about resilience and adaptability. Nothing is complete without resilience. I think sticking to what you have to do, and then of course changing according to the environment, like we discussed. It's going to turn out complex. It's going to turn out difficult. It's going to be changing. It's going to be ever changing, actually. So
Yeah.
it's that one change which is never constant, right? So interestingly, um, very wisely said by one of my leaders once, Kivata, one should always be like water. You should be fluid. So fluidity से मुराद है adapt करें जब situation में adapt करना है. Evaporate when you have to and become air. Um,
Right.
Flow when you have to flow for the situations to adapt to you. So there's so much that has to come in from your leaders that way. So resilience and adaptability से मुराद है कि you're bouncing back from setbacks, you're embracing the change, and of course adjusting strategies accordingly. So you, again, like I said, there is definitely going to be something that might put you off, that might put the situation off, that might just go
Right.
wrong, ideally wrong. So when we talk about that particular instance, we're talking about internalizing and acclimatizing to the change first, understanding that the setback has occurred, and now damage control is in our hands. So we adapt according to the right decisions that we take.
Rightly so.
Um, yeah, and moving on, there's inspirational vision. I think there's no direction if you don't have a vision. We're talking about communicating a compelling vision that motivates and guides teams through challenging times. Very recently, my CEO also shared one of his podcasts, and it was so inspirational to hear it. Sometimes people find it awkward, but I think hearing people and understanding what exactly the direction is, you get a purpose, and that's
Right.
essential for moving in a direction. Without a purpose, I mean, what's the point in getting up in the morning and going to work? What exactly are we working towards? So that's something that I would like to really relate to. Leading by
Perfect.
example is excellent. I mean, that's something that you. So this is like you're trying to make a point by modeling your own fearlessness and authenticity and ethical behavior to inspire trust and followership. So it's like me picking up my cup and taking it to the kitchen today because we're short of staff, maybe because hum responsible hain and we could just do it. And you see people walking in your footsteps, they don't उनको कहते हैं ना आर महसूस नहीं होती है. Trust me,
Right.
Nan Saab, let me tell you, I've worked with people who have no servants at home and are absolutely lavish when they come to the workplace and they're ordering the servants or the work boy or office boys and the domestic staff around. But
Makes
once you
sense.
show them that I come with a driver, a chauffeur opens my door, but I still want to put my cup outside where I was supposed to go myself, it's leading by example. I think
Exactly.
that
Ma'am.
sort of serves the purpose, and that's how things get done
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah, you
Absolutely
change the
right.
mindset of people.
Sure. Perfect, Mom. Thank you very much for this wonderful elaboration. So I'll just sum it up. I mean, this very slide that you got to
Yes,
be
please.
very courageous when you have to decide because you have very little time to decide. So you got to have all these, all this information. You got to stay connected. And in this modern world, everything is just developing very very rapidly. And again, like we already said, that we have to be very, we got to be ready for anything that comes our way. So you have to be very courageous, and then we have to be resilient enough that okay, if we have been punched, if we have been cornered, but the idea is not to leave it, but the idea is just to think about it what I would call in a 360 degree, with a 360-degree mindset. So instead of having a linear thinking, it's about just being more potential, and use the potentiality that we could go in any direction. And when it comes to inspirational vision, of course, you got to walk the talk. You got to put forth very realistic ideas, in a sense that even if there is something that you believe is more like what I would say an idea, but the way it has been put forth and how concretely, with the concrete logics and very professionally it has been put forth towards the team, I think that also mitigates. And finally, leading by example, you really shared a wonderful example of your own, that definitely people will just, try to follow a leader who does what they want others to do. Definitely. So, just moving ahead, we have talked about the core principles of fearless leadership, but now is the time that actually we just resonated with the VUCA as well. So, could you just walk us through certain strategies, how to navigate uncertainty and complexity? Because definitely we have built on it what kind of situation we might come across, but again, how are we going to negotiate with that?
Right. So, moving on from the situations that we're talking about, there are certain navigational strategies that you could use to, sort of harness the situations that could just be complex and uncertain. Moving on from there, I think understanding the nature of uncertainty and complexity in a VUCA world. I hope we can sort of also relate to one of the older concepts that we just talked about in Ansab, and we talked about
Right.
design thinking. Remember, उसमें जब हम
Yeah.
brainstorm करने से पहले
Yes, we did.
ideate करते हैं. So
We
I
did.
hope
We
the
did.
audience is understanding that there's always a sequence and a pattern to the podcasts that we are releasing one after the other. So try to relate to that concept, and if you haven't, please go back to our page, and you can always view it on YouTube also. So,
Definitely.
understanding the nature of the uncertainty and complexity is important, because if we understood that the environment has drastically changed. It's
Yeah.
vulnerable. It is ever changing. It's volatile. It's complex, and etc. etc. We've understood, and we have sort of established that. Now, understanding the nature of that particular uncertainty and complexity sort of builds the context on which you realize what the root problem is. It's like the root cause
Yeah.
analysis that you do, and you sit together, and that's when the, of course, ideation takes place. Your adaptive decision making processes are essential here. That's where your wisdom comes in, your experience comes in, your prudence comes in. It's all a test of and trial, of whatever is happening, and how to really hone the situation, harness and take control of it, and of course do the damage control like we talked about. And
Sure.
of course, leveraging your data and insights. Why is this important? So, if I may just ask, can any forex trade happen without data? Not really. Can any market thrive or sustain, or any new business sort of make more sales for that matter, or any institution employ more people, unless and until they don't have proper data and insights into that? So you have to utilize the data that you have. Interestingly, जब आप कोई नई चीज रिलीज करते हैं, उसके लिए आपको हर हाल में एक सर्वे आपका करना जरूरी होता है. That's where your data comes in. Or I think if people have missed, let me reiterate and repeat one of the examples I gave about a car engine. So this car is supposed to get marketed, and people are talking about how to do it, and they hire this company which sends their best person in, and he goes through the process and jots down details all the time.
Right.
Interestingly, the marketing tagline becomes that at the speed of 180 kilometers per hour, you can hear your clock tick. So that was a huge thing, and that was a huge deal. People have had their comfort in the car, they've had the technology, everything was same in other cars and another competitive in the other competition. But what made it different was something that stood out and nobody talked about: how the car goes so smooth that it goes silent when you are at this particular speed. How was that possible? That was only possible when the data was put in the right dynamics. It was properly, thought about, and there was a proper provocation, and there was thorough insight over its, analysis, etc., etc. And that's how we landed to this. So the world is changing, the competition is also getting grave, and of course it's getting severe. So that's where you leverage your data, and of course insights come into play, and that's how you of course adapt. And then again, वही decision making वाली बात पे मैं आऊंगी कि design thinking talks about how you reiterate. It's a reiterative process. If something doesn't work, you go back and you quickly look into your data again, and you have other insights to look at, and you sort of improvise. Yeah.
Definitely. Just taking this design thinking thing a little further and getting it,
Yes, please.
associated with the VUCA, in my view, I personally believe that if any organization, or for that matter, on a lower level, if any manager adopts to design thinking, I
Hmm.
reckon that they are now aware of this VUCA situation already. That they know that, okay, if this is the new tool to actually get me to a new situation, a better situation, of course, because like Einstein said, I might not actually be able to put it verbatim, but you cannot solve the same problems that with the mind that actually created them. So if the
Absolutely.
challenges are new, we need new tools to be put into place, to be worked
I
with,
totally
to
agree.
be
Very
understood for
well put.
that matter, and for that matter to actually admit the fact that we have to leave the old and we have to go into new, because there is a lot of uncertainty around it, and we cannot handle this VUCA world with 1980s or 1990s strategies for that matter.
Very true.
See,
Very true.
so this is what I personally believe, that your impression, if I just try to sum it up, I'll try my level best. I feel probably won't be able to justify myself, but yeah, I will just give my 2 cents to move before we move to the next slide.
Yes,
But
please.
yeah, this is what it is all about. That we have to understand the nature of uncertainty. We have to admit to it, and then we have to understand that, okay, if the decisions are to be taken very quickly, of course, before we take any decision very quickly, we must have already gone through some imaginary scenarios
Hmm.
already. And if one of those scenarios literally manifests, we won't be taken by a shock. It won't be a shocker to us. It
Cool.
will be like, okay, we talked about it almost like 3 months ago and we thought that this may happen.
Hmm.
However, it was highly unlikely, but okay, now it has already happened, so it is not hitting us as a shock. We can somehow manage ourselves. So this could be a good strategy. You have to have your what I would say, a thought process going on. You have to get everybody on board. You have to get them included in the decision making process, and prior to decision making process, just having a view over that. And again, finally, leveraging data and insights. I will connect it to what I just said, that just to get an idea and develop an imaginary scenario, I need to have some background, some trends. Sometimes we don't get the data, we just get the trends, the trajectory of the situation, and we can actually improvise and then imagine that, okay, this is what might happen, and probably how we can handle, because nobody actually saw a pandemic, a global pandemic coming and hitting us.
Hmm.
That was the only loss that we as humans actually suffered, because we never thought that, okay, we'll be caught off guarded with all this technology and all this might, because last prior to COVID, what we had was way back in 1918. And we just thought that we have evolved enough with the technology that if any pandemic of that magnitude hits us again, we are pretty ready. But the magnitude, I won't say the magnitude, but the way pandemic swept over, that was something novel, and we weren't ready for that.
Very true.
So maybe that actually walked us through that, how exactly we should be ready. So, ma'am, we've already built a lot on strategies for navigating uncertainty, complexity, but how exactly we can build resilience and how we can embed it in our organizational culture, so that people do not actually have to specially think about being resilient, but they should be resilient by virtue, by default.
Very, very interesting question put forth, and of course, I couldn't agree more with whatever you have built upon as well, sir. Very rightly put. I think that's how the world works, and having been ready now for it, I think puts us in a better situation. I think we are more savvy with how to cater to our situations. We know more about how to handle them, and I think inclusive of how workplace, I think it changed the entire dynamics of our working scenarios also.
Yeah.
But that's all the for the better. I think we went for the green. So interestingly, when you put it that way, and I think if I am not wrong, this is our last slide, Hanansa. I say yeah.
We have just one more to go, but that will be
All right.
concluding it.
So building upon
So
same
taking
thing
a leave,
again.
yes.
So we're talking about देखिए मुझे पहले actually लगता था, and I think there was I was grossly falsified here when I learned the fact that resilient can be built, resilience can be built and honed. अच्छा जी, मुझे ये लगा
Mhm.
था कि ये एक इनबिल्ट ट्रेट होता है. I'll be very honest about it, and again I never hold apologies for being wrong, because I appreciate that I was given the wisdom of understanding and learning more. So interestingly, when I got to know, and it sort of dawned upon me that resilience is not just a trait that exists, it's something that is there, and can also be cultivated. That was actually a shocker for me.
Sure.
I thought resilience is
Sure.
supposed to be something inbuilt. Interestingly,
Right.
in any organizational culture, सबसे पहले तो आपका leader becomes the picture because you sort of build it by being an example. और मुझे ये समझ आई कि जब
Right.
आप साबित कदम होते हैं और आप डटे रहते हैं, you have that brave thing in you, your team follows your footsteps. So how do you build that in particular? We're talking about the importance of a resilient culture first. फिर हम जाएंगे बात करने के
Yeah.
लिए cultivating trust and psychological safety. So and of course eventually we talk about promoting learning and continuous improvement. I'd like to go from this way because
Right.
it's not really numbered. Why we are talking about promoting learning and continuous improvement is the continuous improvement is a Japanese concept, by the way, and it's called Kaizen. आई हैव ऑलवेज बिन
Mhm.
फॉन्ड ऑफ इट. आप कंटिन्यूसली लोगों को इम्प्रूव करने की अपॉर्चुनिटी दें, लर्न करने की अपॉर्चुनिटी दें. लाइक आई जस्ट मेंशन विद एन एनेक्डोट, आई ओपन द स्लाइड सेइंग कि जी आई नो, hold no apologies for being wrong or being not knowing something, because I welcome learning and I'd appreciate if that is promoted in my organization also. And I think that's how I was built. That's how I was coached myself by my leaders. So building onto the same philosophy and strategy, I'd highly encourage all the leaders out there to understand that if you have to be fearless, you have to not have any insecurities and promote learning. Never think आपकी जगह कोई आ जाएगा etc या कोई और आ जाएगा और ये एक पूल बन जाएगा. नहीं,
Sure.
आप जब ठीक होते हैं, साबित कदम होते हैं, आपके खिलाफ लोग जाकर भी उल्टा उनके सर पे ही पड़ती है बात. So पहले तो believe in yourself more and take the prudence in account by taking the right decisions. And that's where you promote a good culture, a learningful culture जहाँ लोग नया कुछ सीखते रहते हैं. They find relevance, they find
Sure.
more purpose with the organization, and they sort of retain themselves with the organization even further. Given the brevity of time, of course, पे इस तरह मैं जल्दी build upon करूँगी how continuous improvement is built into the processes. आप कुछ नया सीख लेंगे. For example, मैंने आपसे चैट जीपीटी की बात की, हम भी जिक्र कर रहे थे कि उस पर ट्रेनिंग करानी चाहिए. And maybe we'll open it for the LinkedIn people as well for free short little
Sure.
training for them. क्यों कर रहे हैं ऐसा? जब जब आपके अंदर सिक्योरिटी नहीं होती, आप एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल कल्चर बिल्ड कर लेते हैं, हैप्पी कल्चर बिल्ड कर लेते हैं, सीखने सिखाने का कल्चर बिल्ड कर लेते हैं, यू आर टुवर्ड्स बीइंग रेजिलिएंट. You don't fear anything,
Exactly
let
right.
people also fear it. Yeah.
Very well put, ma'am.
Cultivating trust and psychological safety is important. It sort of comes as the basic level of your on your Maslow's hierarchy as well. Why security safety is a very important thing. Psychological आपका बहुत बहुत strong base में आता है. इंसान की well-being क्यों important है? अचानक से HR में well-being का concept क्यों आने लग गया है? International standards पे हम
Right.
mental health की बात क्यों करते हैं? That's very important. इंसान है. We're not robots. This is definitely an element that must be considered, and it is being considered. And in order to hone trust again and cultivating it amongst your employees, you sort of, when you do that, you cultivate trust, you sort of ensure they know that they are psychologically safe. At the same time, you're giving them this trust factor actually, where they're sure about the fact that this is the right place for me. You sort of make them more resilient because then they keep on going on.
Right.
They sort of stick to what the plan is, and then they are, let's say if they do fail a couple of times in their tasks, they do know that it's going to be okay. We can always do this the other way. That's a
Perfectly right,
mindset
ma'am.
again, the change of mindset we're talking about. So G.
Exactly right. Okay, so just building on this, and we'll just do that very quickly because it's like almost 40 minutes, but really can talk about it if somebody is pretty much interested for us to conduct a training
Of course.
session for them with their team. We definitely will do that. You're most welcome to do that. Uh, by the fact, you can just have a look at this QR code. You can just scan it. It will take you to our inquiry form. Just fill it, and we'll get back to you with all the solutions that we can have. And but the thing is, ma'am, inspiring and motivating teams during turbulent times. I mean, we just talked about resilience, and we talked about the character and the composure a manager has to show. Even in the last podcast that we have, we talked up a lot about it. That why a manager's composure is so crucial.
Hmm.
So how exactly it does impact the team, the mindset of the team that feels like that they are bettered, they don't have a way to go, it's all over. So and how exactly this they can encourage this team in a VUCA situation.
All right. So very beautifully put, two pointers, and I think anybody out there reading these will understand. So, pehle to, like very rightly put, understanding the impact of turbulent times on teams is one aspect. Trust me, by inspiring them and making sure that they stay motivated, there is so much you add to the value system of the entire organization and your team that things automatically sort of start stabilizing when there's turbulence. Number one. And
Right.
I would like to connect to the other point as well, where we're talking about effective communication and transparent leadership. See, when the leader sort of makes sure that there's transparency flowing down the hierarchy in the company, and there's no
Right.
bias, and that everybody is equally treated, there's no mistreatment, and of course there are also no communication gaps. In fact, the communication is effective enough that it sort of increases the
Right.
efficiency of the entire communication channel. Things become very easy for people to understand. लेकिन usually work places
Right.
पे सबसे ज़्यादा इशू जो मैंने नोट किया है, जो ह्यूमन इश्यूज हमारे आते हैं, लाइक आई टोल्ड यू 80% ऑफ द टाइम देयर आर पीपल इश्यूज दैट एक्चुअली sort of hinder the progress, and hinder the progress of our of any task, I mean any deliverable. It's just being
Yeah.
hindered from one
Yeah.
thing only. People have people issues right now. आपसी मसाइल हैं, 100 चीजें हैं, लेकिन the
Exactly.
moment you tell them and you inspire them enough to let them discard the noise and concentrate on the goals, that's where it gets motivating for them. So you inspire them to be enthused enough to concentrate on what is being told to do as a part of the system
Yeah.
because they are valuable. Number one. So अगर मसाइल आते हैं, the times are turbulent, etc., etc. Okay, if you don't realize that your team will only stand their ground unless the captain is. So I'd like to relate it to the एग्जाम्पल ऑफ क्रिकेट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आप देखिए, कैप्टन की स्ट्रेंथ से पूरी टीम चलती है. If he's bucking
Exactly.
up
Right.
his team all the time, it's going to be fine. Even the coach, if you remember, फुटबॉल में कोचेस का बड़ा एलिमेंट होता है, बिकॉज वो लीड
Yeah.
कुछ नहीं किसी को क्रिएट करते, उनका कोच पीछे से बोल रहा होता है. देयर इज सो मच ऑफ इंस्पिरेशन एंड मोटिवेशन कमिंग फ्रॉम देयर दैट दे नो दिस इज गोइंग टू बी. समटाइम्स अगर आप नोट करें तो cheering up से, appreciation से, things become really easy. So when things go wrong, वही वाली बात है, when the going gets tough, the tough get going only. So you become that tough person and inspire your team enough so that the and motivate them enough कि जो आपका turbulent time है, जो मसाइल का एरिया है या जोन है, वो आराम से और सुकून से गुजर जाए. So making them resilient, at the same time inspiring them to be better. That's one.
Thank you very much, Mao. Just to sum it up, I personally believe that the first reaction of a leader, the moment the news breaks, the moment this is realized that something has gone wrong,
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that the first reaction by the leader actually sets the tone.
That is so
If
true.
that's panicking, the whole team goes
Spot on.
down. If
Spot on.
that's composed, it's a thoughtful response. All right,
Hmm.
we have been to it, we will just manage it, no problem at all. You know what, you got to keep many things within yourself. You got to
Hmm.
keep a check on your emotions as well. As a leader, you can't just be very explicit with your emotions.
Hmm.
This is basically what emotional intelligence is for a leader, that they have to keep a check on their emotions, that okay, I cannot just outrightly be a human being. You got to sometimes act as a machine, as a machine would respond. No emotions, nothing whatsoever. Okay, let's judge, let's wait, let's hold, let's look at it, but let's do something about it.
True.
Accept worrying. So that
Hmm.
first reaction, that first facial reaction, I would say, that actually tells the team that okay, either we are holding together and we're moving forward, or we are just stuck here and everybody runs for themselves.
I couldn't
and
agree more. Absolutely
and
right.
that is where the leader leads actually, by just simply jumping from the ship, that okay, I led it because I jumped first. So maybe that's it, but for now,
Tested and
we would
trial.
really like to
Absolutely.
continue.
Ji.
Exactly.
Ji.
But again, like I said, that I think this our viewers got some idea, because everybody can talk about VUCA. Everybody realize sometimes we just need to be thoughtful about something that we don't consider much important. So what we actually tried to do was that we just made VUCA special for you. That it should actually be part of your upcoming meetings, your upcoming strategies, your upcoming policies. You should have this keyword actually being embedded in your policies, embedded in your meeting agendas, in your general talk. If you really want to build culture about something, you should start talking about it. As a
Agree.
leader, somebody who has to give a vision, they just need to just start talking about it in their casual discussion. People just start pick up on these cues, and then everybody starts doing the same. And if you are an inspirational leader, and people, they follow you for being what you are, all your charisma and all that. People will start taking you seriously, that okay, fine, if he's or she's talking a lot about it, then let's just delve into it, and we just we
That's
can
where the
try.
learning begins, right? The learning we were
Exactly
talking
right.
about, and you
Exactly
improve.
right. So I think I again, like I said, I always wish that we could just continue, keep on discussing and discussing, and then, unfolding various perspectives. But again, we are barred by the time, so we'll have to conclude this podcast here. But while I go, I would again repeat that this is our QR code on your screens right now. You can simply scan it and it'll directly take you to our inquiry form. Or on top of that, you can just have a look at our WhatsApp number, leave an inquiry there. We'll get back to you on a call. We can discuss and then we can materialize things. If you want us to conduct a workshop, session, a keynote on this topic, or just a casual meeting with your staff, this is a new way actually. You can just call in any consultant and just make them sit with your team and have them a cup of tea and just casually discuss. That is a new way of understanding. That is a new way of learning and delivering, whatever you can call it, instead of organized or formalized settings. A casual sort of over the cup of tea discussion can really be very effective. We'll just love to. We'll just make sure that we come up with the best possible solution. But again, a lot, thank you very much for your patience, and thank you very much again, ma'am, for spending time and enlightening us and the viewers as well with all this insight. And we're
If I may
really
just
looking
add,
forward.
actually,
Yeah,
I really have to
sure.
thank you as well, Nanza, because you're equally well trained on the same aspects. And I think viewers really need to know one thing, that यहाँ पे फिर we are least interactive because there are barely messages that we
Yeah,
can answer. There are questions that we can entertain. But when it becomes a thorough
sure.
workshop, it includes a lot of exercises,
Exactly.
and it becomes such a system that people don't forget these words. Then they realize what the concept is about, and it's sort of fully ingrained, like you very well mentioned as well. So yes,
Thanks
over
a
to you,
lot.
Ananta. Thank you so much for
Thank you
having me
very
once
much,
again.
ma'am, and thank you very much again for the kind words as well, ma'am. And thanks a lot, viewers. We'll have to sign off like we always do, with a heavy heart, in fact, because there is so much to discuss. But yes, we can discuss all that in a workshop or in a discussion with you, and we'll be looking forward to answer your queries. Take care of yourself until next time, which is very soon. Within a few days, we'll get back with another podcast. And please don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, and we do have a YouTube channel as well. You can just simply go and check that. It is basically titled Confluence Upskill to Excel. So we'll just share the live link for that too. Thank you very much, everyone, and thanks a lot, ma'am, once again. Everybody have
Thank
a
you.
blessed day ahead. Signing off.